Our next session is around building up your teaching career. So we know that taking that next career step isn't always a well-trodden path for educators, or a clear path. And this next session will discuss what you can do to set yourself up for success. And we have a fantastic panel with us here today to share their experiences in that area with us. So I'd love to introduce Mr. Lucas Johnson, who works with me here at the faculty, to kick the panel off. Thanks, Lucas.
Thank you very much, Megan. Okay, as Megan said, my name's Lucas Johnson and I'm the Research and Development Manager in STEM. Hang on with that. STEM education here in the faculty. We have a great panel with us here today. So starting from here, we have Stuart McKenzie, who's the Physical Education and Lead Community Service Teacher at Mount Scopus Memorial College and was also previously Deputy Head of Outdoor Education at Beacon Hills College. Then we have Kimberly Young, who's the Head of Middle School Girls at Haileybury, and you've already been introduced to Skye Pruitt in the previous session, who is the Assistant Principal at Bentley Secondary College. So my role here is, I'll just give you a little introduction as to why I'm here facilitating this panel. So my role here is all around putting together and delivering professional learning for teachers in STEM education. I also work in partnerships and work as a liaison between the faculty and schools. So I come out of primary background. I'm a primary teacher and I started teaching in 2007. I also completed a Master of Educational Leadership in 2015. In my time teaching, I had various leadership roles. So I was a digital technologies leader, a reporting leader, and then also the STEM education leader at my last school. In that time, I've also put myself out there to be on a range of committees. So working outside of the school on executive planning committees with Catholic Education Melbourne around, we had networks that we put together and planned sessions for. Also part of the Catholic Education Melbourne STEM Committee, which I'm still a part of now. And some of you may be familiar, maybe not, with the Melbourne STEM Teacher Collective. So I'm part of the organising committee for those events. Now, getting to this position here at Monash, I sort of came about in 2017 when I ran an event at my school called STEM to the Front, where we brought together 12 schools and brought students together to share their learning and showcase their learning, and it really built my community of practice, and it allowed me to branch out outside of the school walls and to build a range of networks, and that unfortunately has led me to this role here. That's enough about me. I'm now going to move across our panellists here and I'm going to ask them to give a brief introduction as to who they are and what has brought them here today.
Thank you very much. So my name is Stuart. I studied here at Monash as well. I did first a bachelor degree of exercise and health science at Australian Catholic University, and then came and did the 2-year Masters of Secondary Education here at Monash, which I really enjoyed. I've been teaching for about 5 years now, and I've actually been at 4 different schools. So I've had a bit of experience. I've taught at 2 primary schools and 2 high schools. I'm currently at a high school, which I'm really enjoying. And I'm teaching physical education, health and outdoor education as well, which I really enjoy. I love the variety. You know, it's taken me a little while to sort of find the school and the environment that I really am suited to, and also being able to teach what I want. I mean, you can't always just go out and say, I want that job and it's yours. It can take a little while to get there. And so I feel quite blessed that I've found the job that I have now. Really enjoying it and trying to get, as competent as I can, and again, look towards that next step of where I can go from there.
Thanks, Stuart. We'll move to you. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Stuart. I was just talking to these guys out there. My path to this role has been a little bit different. So I originally did a marketing and public relations degree, and I worked for a little while in that, and then thought I don't really want to be in this industry anymore, and really for want of a better offer and of no idea of what else to do, I did a diploma of education secondary teaching, and I really wanted to travel at that time, so I I went through the course and got a job in a pretty tough school, and then sure enough I went off and took leave and got and went to London and taught in London for about 12 months, and again worked in some pretty tough schools there, and then I came back and I stayed at in the government sector for about another 4 years before moving to Haileybury College, where I currently am. And then from there I've had a range of leadership positions in all boys, all girls, senior, middle years, and yeah, so a whole host of different things, and now I've been in my current role as the head of middle school girls for 4 years now, coming up 4 years now, yeah. Okay.
Great, thanks, Kim. And Sky?
Hi again. As I said to you earlier, I've been teaching for about 12 years. I'm one of the unique people who, when I went through doing my dip ed, that I wanted to be a principal from the outset. And I used to joke when I was on teaching rounds to the principals, I'd be like, coming for your job. And they'd sort of laugh and go, sure, sure. Ironically, though, I actually did my teaching rounds at Bentley Secondary College. So when I went back and got the job as assistant principal, I think everyone got a bit nervous. I'm like, she's serious. So I started off within my second year of teaching. I had taken over the KLA, the arts domain in my school, and then moved into ICT because it was naturally something that I enjoyed doing and helping other people with. And so through those kind of positions of responsibility, I then gained my confidence to think, hang on, I could probably go for a leading teacher position at another school. I do exude maybe some confidence that might be, a bit beyond my capacity sometimes. But yeah, I was like, yeah, third year teacher, I'll be a leading teacher, no worries. So an e-learning position came up at Forest Hill Secondary. I actually didn't teach there with Maria. And so I happened to get that position. So it's very unusual for someone, obviously in your third year of teaching, to be a leading teacher. But it just happened that that portfolio was suitable for someone with my experiences. From there, I've been curriculum development and pedagogy. I've been instructional practice leader. I've been head of sub-school. I've been head of transition and promotions. So I've done almost every leading teacher portfolio there was, except for timetabling, so I'm not rushing out to do that right now. But I guess what I was trying to do was to gain as much experience in different areas of the school as I could, which really paid off at the end of the day, because when I did end up in an assistant principal position, I had an understanding of what everybody was doing all of the time. And so I can kind of have a bit of empathy around what the sub-schools are going through when they're giving out their subject selection handouts at the moment. The amount of time that they're going through trying to timetable kids into their electives and things like that. And that has really helped me to kind of, I guess, work with different individuals across the school.
Okay, Sky, before you pass the mic on, you did talk about your interest in becoming a principal. So why is being a leader important to you?
For me, there are elements of my personality, I think, that have always drawn me to leadership. So I've said to the people here before, I'm a drama teacher, so I quite like standing up and talking in front of people. And that's one of the elements of leadership. But also over time, I think I really enjoy the fact that I can have a really great impact across a larger proportion of people. So I had a conversation with one of my domain leaders the other day. She was struggling with the fact that she's no longer able to give as much time to her classroom teaching because she's so invested in her domain. And I said to her, at the end of the day, if you think about it, all of the work that you're doing is impacting almost every single student in this school because you oversee a domain that all of those students do. It's a core subject of our school. So even though you might not feel like you're having the greatest impact in that classroom, you are having a fantastic and very deep impact across the entire school. And so it's sort of that system impact that you can have. You can actually make an impact to a greater number of students, a greater number of parents, a greater number of colleagues, and even just to the system as a whole, which I think is really important. We need people who care. We need people who feel very passionate about what they do in those positions of responsibility, because often people kind of just fall into it because they're the next in line. I don't necessarily think that that's the best way to do it, but obviously we just need to make sure that we're putting the best people in those positions as possible.
Thanks, Guy. How about you, Kim or Stuart? Why is being a leader important to you?
Well, Sky sort of touched upon it really, in that it's just about getting the best outcomes for the students and looking to have impact there, and really wanting to support staff and feeling that I had something to offer to support staff and to inspire them to, you know, work their hardest and get the best out of them for their staff. For the students, really.
Stuart, anything or?
Yeah, I think just for me, in the roles that I have done, it's been a new challenge. It's been a bit of an adventure. It's been something new to get excited about as well. Being able to form relationships with more staff as well. You know, in a high school, I'm mostly within the PE department, and so, you know, branching out and getting to know people of other departments, you know, will happen over time, but that process can be accelerated through positions of leadership and being forced to, you know, reach out and meet new people and experience new things. And, you know, an opportunity such as today is just fantastic, and that's, you know, been an opportunity given to us because of our positions.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next one is around the pathways to leadership. So often it seems in a school that a pathway to leadership seems to be a linear path to principal, for example. What options are there for leadership, whether it's in schools or in education generally?
Well, I've started my teaching career within a primary school, and I think the leadership opportunities are probably a bit less numerous than in a high school, but there still is opportunities to be a learning specialist, an assistant principal or a principal, but also to take on extra roles day to day, whether it's managing events and helping to organise people. For instance, last year I was the physical education coordinator at a primary school quite local to here, and that involved organising all of the sporting teams, the coaches, the referees, all of that sort of thing, parents coordinating and all that sort of stuff. And so, although I was only in charge of myself as a staff member, at certain times I had to coordinate others, which was really enjoyable and helped me, is helping me with what I do now.
Absolutely.
In terms of other pathways, I guess, again, Sky just she's hit the nail on the head in that, you know, you would go around and do so many different jobs, and it's one thing that I urge you to do is when opportunities come up, take them and you know, give it your best and try and get a whole range of different jobs within a school. But I think education is changing a little bit. There's certainly different platforms within the school, like IT is huge, and being able to support staff to build their IT skills is a huge area of development, and can, you know, be almost up on level with the principal in terms of the impact and that would have, and also sort of entrepreneurship and having that business sense. It's now really, really big, is also probably the other avenue that I certainly see in my school as being, you know, if being a head of campus or a head of, you know, a principal or something like that is not really what you have in mind, then there's sort of, I think, those avenues as well to go down.
Certainly.
I think because I've always worked in the government setting, we are under-resourced, and so if in leadership, if I had any staff member that came to me and said, I really want to run a lunchtime club in blah, or I really want to participate in this particular thing, there is no chance at all that I would be saying no, because it's almost always in the best interest of the students, and that's what we're doing. My husband is an example. We've been teaching for the same amount of time. He has no interest in going into leadership at all, hence why he works part-time and I work full-time. But he makes opportunities in his school for himself. So he decided that he wants to run a Friday lunchtime concert with the kids. And so he has, you know, of a school of 500 kids, 350 of them will turn up to a lunchtime concert to watch the bands, the kids play on a Friday afternoon. Now, that's just something that he enjoys doing, but that is actually something that, as a leader, if I got someone's job application and in that criteria that's talking about how you're making an impact to your school and saying you're making, you know, a Friday lunchtime concert and 2/3 of your school are coming and being involved in that, I see that as a huge win. So even those things that you think might not be, you know, your traditional kind of pathways to leadership can actually be a huge impact to the school and to the students.
I think you really touched on an important point there. I think sometimes we think about leadership as holding a leadership position, but really it's actions like that, where you run lunchtime clubs and so on. That's leadership in action, really, isn't it? And from my point of view, I didn't know a job like mine even existed 2 years ago. So it's just, you know, putting yourself out there and finding out what's around. My next progression within a school was possibly up to deputy principal, but it wasn't really what I was looking for at that stage in my career. So I was fortunate enough to come over here to Monash Uni. Okay, so our next question is about how you know when it's time to take that next step. So I know that our room here is filled with teachers who are within the first 5 years of their teaching career. So it's possibly time that you're thinking about taking that next step into a leadership position. Do you have any advice for that?
I don't think there's any ever a good time to take the next step. You'll always question yourself, oh, maybe next year I'll be more ready, or maybe next year I'll have more resources, or I'll have better understanding of how my classroom management works. At the end of the day, more often than not, you'll end up being put into a leadership position either through chance or because you've put yourself up there. One of my colleagues in Unlocking Potential turned up to one of our sessions saying, my principal walked out on Thursday and now I'm the principal. And so that kind of thing happens. It can happen. So you just need to be prepared. And if you're willing to do it, then you put your hand up and you give it a go. Because really you can't make a mistake. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but really if you've got your best interests at heart of the students that you're working with, you're not really going to do harm to anybody.
My first leadership position, I think I was a 4th year teacher, and the Year 9 coordinator towards the end of the year threw a chair at a student and had a nervous breakdown. And so I thought, wow, what better time to step forward? That sounds great. But sometimes it's not until you sort of hear the position and you kind of think, oh, yeah, I think I could do it. I think I could give it a go. So confidence is a big thing. Being at the point where you can fly by the seat of your pants a little bit with your classes is also really important, because one of the biggest changes to your day is that you just, and Sky touched upon it before, you just don't have the time to put into your lessons and things like that you normally would. So you've got to be able to think on the fly. Yeah, I think that's that probably sums it up.
So Stuart, I know you talked about how you've taken on little bits and pieces around. So what would you suggest that people who are considering moving towards leadership roles start doing right now to make sure that when that opportunity approaches, that they feel like they're more prepared for that?
Yeah, thank you. I think tell someone as well. I think letting the people above you know that you're keen can be a great stepping stone. Because they'll see you potentially in a bit of a different light. They'll see the things that you're trying. They might give you some advice. If they've got a small opportunity coming up, they might have their eye on you. And even just voicing that as well can maybe consolidate it to yourself a little bit, that you are keen. And I think also, yeah, as we said earlier, sort of consolidating a bit of your own knowledge as well, because it's a bit of a balancing act, I suppose, of reaching too far and not reaching far enough. I think if you really want something, you will make it happen. But yeah, I think letting someone know can be a great step.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to move on to the notion of mentorship. So as a leader, you would naturally become a mentor to some of your staff. Did you have any mentors that stood out in your mind in your career path until now, and what was it that made them stand out?
Yeah, I've had two that really come to mind quite clearly. The first one was the assistant principal of the first primary school that I worked at. He was fantastic, and one of the things that really stands out for me was his vision. He really had a vision for the school. He had a vision for the educational experience that he wanted to provide for the students. He had a plan of how he was going to do it, and he worked about executing it every single day. He was very supportive of staff. He was very determined. He was always doing things, and I just really appreciated his drive and his passion. And I think he saw a little bit of that in me as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gave me a little bit more attention for that, which I really appreciated. Another one was the head of my department at my second school, and so he was the head of the PE faculty, and he was very caring, very supportive. He really went into bat for the team. If there's anything that we were not happy with, whether there was something that happened with a student or with a parent or with another colleague, we knew that our head of PE was going to try and find out what had happened and back us in as much as he could, which gave us a great deal of comfort. And he also held really high expectations for the students in terms of their behaviour and their effort. And I really appreciated that as well.
Thanks, Jill. Kim, how about you?
There's several I could talk about, but one who really, who I will talk about is the principal of the first school I was at, and this was like the toughest school still to this date that I've ever worked in, and I worked in some tough schools in London, but he was the principal, and he was just his absolute passion for the job, his passion for helping these such underprivileged kids, and it was just tireless. And he would just work such long hours, and he wasn't afraid to get in and get his hands dirty. He was a woodwork teacher, and be out there building things with the these delinquent boys and girls, out there getting involved with them. So he really led by example as to what he wanted us to do. But then also, again, we just always knew that he had our back. It could be incredibly tough, and without the support of good staff around you, you can't. You sort of can't survive, really. And so he was so incredibly kind to everybody, and you knew that you could go to him with a problem, and he would help you with that, and he would back you up, as Stuart said.
Thanks, Kim. Scott?
I don't know how to put this diplomatically, but I have taken elements of different aspects of leaders that I've worked with that I think are really helpful elements, and then there are other elements that I have discarded and not used. So I probably haven't had, maybe because of the way I'm going about things, I haven't had anyone that's kind of fit the mentor sort of scheme for me, but I am very aware of the fact that I haven't had that opportunity, so I find other ways to make sure that I'm looking at what is best practice in leadership. So through Unlocking Potential, we have that internship, and so I had an opportunity to go and work at another school for 6 weeks, and that was really important to go and see what leadership looks like in another school. It's making those collegiate connections with other assistant principals or other leading teachers and having conversations about what good leadership looks like from their perspective. So you might not necessarily have it in your setting, but you will definitely have elements in different people that you work with. And actually, a lot of the time, I'm learning a lot from the people that are like my domain leaders or just general classroom teachers in my school. They have really nice ways of working or really nice collegiate relationships with people, there's lots of elements that I can take from them also. So it isn't also just about having a mentor that's in a position of responsibility.
Yeah, I like how you touch on that mentors don't always have to be people who sit above you in the thing. You can always look around and the people you're working with. So obviously you've no doubt had a chance to be a mentor for someone else. What sort of what benefits did you gain from being mentor to others?
I think being a mentor allows you to reflect critically on what you're doing all of the time, because you tend to draw on your own experiences when you're mentoring someone. And so it's just allowed me to sit there and just think about, oh yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't really looked from an outsider's perspective about how I've done a particular thing or, experiences that I've had. So I think that's been really essential, is just, getting that outsider's perspective on my own experiences.
It's a good reminder of what you need to be doing.
Absolutely.
I think it really solidifies what you know and what you don't know as well. Sort of the saying is, do you really know something if you can't teach someone else how to do it? And I think for me, looking at the next sort of positions that I may want in the future, potentially head of department or something like that, I'm starting to think about the things that I'm not so solid on, and that's what I'm going to be working towards, so that in the future I will be able to mentor people on that.
Absolutely. Having an understanding of where your strengths and weaknesses lie is really important. So my next question, and Scott, actually, who will I start with this one? Kim, I might start with you on this one, because you did mention before that there are challenges when you take on a leadership role as far as your teaching load and so on. What are some of those challenges or changes that you faced when you took on a leadership role?
I think I can speak for everyone here when I say time management is a big one. So you have to get those sorts of, all your systems in place and know your, what was the word my sister used it the other day? Your working rhythm, your something rhythm, your weekly rhythm, in being able to sort of timetable yourself into different places where you knew you would be, to be able to get visibility in all the places that you needed to be. So kind of structuring that into your day so that that's in your calendar and that's where you know you need to be. Public speaking probably was a big one, and having to speak in a big auditorium full of 500 odd students, parents, staff on a weekly basis, sometimes with very little planning time. Teachers are amazing in what they can do. Like, don't ever let anyone tell you that you're not. Like, you can be walking on stage and it'll be, I've been told I've got a 3-minute slot. Kim, can you just stretch that out a bit and speak for 12? Sure, no problems. Okay, yep, absolutely. And up you go, and then you're on stage and you've got to just run with it. Or it might be the opposite, we had you down for 10 minutes. Can you cut that down to like 2? Sure, I'll just chuck my notes out. That's no problem. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. So flexibility as well, like having flexibility. And then probably a really big one is you've got to be prepared to be able to put the needs of the school and the needs of your other staff and those in your team ahead of your own. So we all know that, the work for our own classes and that kind of stuff, it doesn't go away at the end of the day when a pastoral care issue happens that you need to address then and there, and the rest of your day just goes out the window. So that all that marking, all that planning, everything, it still needs to be done. But that'll just have to get done that night, or, and then you've got to be able to adjust very quickly to what your next day looks like.
I'm just going to add to that, and it's a little bit contrary to what you're saying. I think for longevity in this, if I become a principal in the next few years, I'm going to have to be doing that for another 20, 25 years. That's a long time to be doing that job. And so as strange as this sounds, I actually have an alarm on my phone that goes off at 10 to 5 every day. And my colleagues laugh that that's my going home alarm. Because I have a young family, I have to remind myself that I have to go home and be with my family. Because if I don't take care of myself first, I'm not going to be able to help anybody else. And it's important in my position as the assistant principal that people see me taking care of myself so that it gives them permission to take care of themselves also. Because when people see me going home at the end of the day, they go, oh, now I can go home. They don't feel like they have to sit in the office until 7 o'clock at night. There are always days where I will have to do stuff that comes up, but there is never a day that I got to the end of my day and go, I've finished everything today, close my laptop, go home. So I just say, you know what, tomorrow's another day. And as long as it's not a pressing issue that's going to impact anybody's health or well-being, the laptop closes, I go home, I spend time with my family, we eat dinner together, we have, watch a show on Netflix, and I go to sleep at a normal hour. And that's really, really important as a classroom teacher and as a leader. So please, you need to take care of yourselves.
Thanks, Guy. I think that's a really important message because I think teaching can become a bit of an all-consuming role at times. So it's important to understand that you have that clear distinction between work life and family life. How about you, Stuart?
I think for me, just in the few things that I've done, is the experience of wearing multiple hats. So, at 9 a.m, you're teaching a PE class. At 10 a.m, you're looking at spreadsheets of finance or something like that. You've got a yard duty at recess. You've got a student that's unhappy at 11, and then you teach another class. And then it's doing, putting on different hats at different times and being able to just sort of not forget what you've done before, but step into a new door, step into a new mindset. I think that's a bit of a challenge as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any one particular skill that any one of you has picked up since being a leader that's really sort of helped you in your role? I think if you want thinking time, Kim's happy to...
Whether it's a skill or sort of a mindset, is just sort of being comfortable with the level of control that you have. It can be easy to, being a teacher within the classroom or starting to take on some extra responsibility as well, to think that you need to be in control of every single thing, and if something goes bad, then it is your fault. And depending on the situation, it could be. But yeah, I think just sort of taking a calm approach to things is really important.
Absolutely. Kim?
It's a good one. Mine is more a practical skill, and I'm doing it at the moment, and that's detective work. Working with young people, you can interview a whole, if something happens and you've got to then go about and interview a whole lot of people, you'll get all sorts of different stories and never the same account once. And I've laughed on many occasions because I'm a history teacher also, and history teaching is like detective work and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, I never got any detective training yet. I feel like I could be on the police force now.
For me, I think it would be to have compassion, because if you go into your day-to-day trying your best to understand the people that you're working with and really trying to empathise the position that they come from, you can't really go wrong because you're always trying to look out for the best interests of all of the people. And so compassion for others goes a long way, I think, in leadership.
Absolutely. And going back to Stuart's point, I think in my experience in a leadership role is that idea that you tend to sometimes feel guilty one way or another. You're giving too much time to your leadership role and not enough time to students, or vice versa. So there's always going to be that sense. So it's about finding that balance that you're happy to sit with. What about, there's always going to be times that you put outside of your comfort zone. So maybe you have to have a tricky conversation, or I'm sure being a leader, there's a range of things that put you outside of your comfort zone. Have you got any advice or examples, without being too specific, I guess, about times that that's happened to you?
Having the difficult conversations, absolutely, and it's just something you've got to do and be able to approach that with compassion as well. And, it's never really easy, but probably the more you do it and the more... I actually find I'm better at it the busier I am. because I don't have too much time to think about it and sort of ponder it. I just have to do it, and so you kind of become more decisive in that respect as well. And then you've got to get it done. So you don't let it affect you as much. I don't know, because you can't. And the other one that I mentioned before was the public speaking. Certainly. Going from, say, a setting like this or just a year level or something like that to the big auditorium and doing all that. And particularly if the head of boys' middle school might be like an amazing public speaker, and then you have to go after him, then, that was certainly something I found a challenge.
I've had to be in the unfortunate position of putting people through performance reviews. So when they haven't been meeting their performance in their PDPs, and in one particular circumstance, it was actually a family friend, so someone that I'd known since I was a child, and so that's a very challenging situation to be in. But again, I think trying to understand the other person's perspective. When you're talking about teaching, you're talking about not just somebody's livelihood, but you're almost talking about their identity, because we wrap up our identity in our career very much. There's not many other careers where you feel so strongly about what you do, I think, as you do in teaching. So any time that you are kind of in opposition to somebody's identity as a teacher, it really makes them feel very, very challenged and very uncomfortable. And so going to that with, understanding and thought, I spend time at first taking notes and making sure I have a good understanding of the reasons and trying to be evidence-based and not going with emotion. So, these are the very specific reasons that we are putting you through performance review. These are the strategies that you want to start to employ. These are the resources that I can give you. So it's a very kind of clear outline that I follow. And so also it's a fair process, because that person that I was a very close family friend with who went through that performance review was getting the same treatment as somebody who I didn't really know, because it was the same kind of process. It was very fair. It was very kind of structured and thought out. And using my colleagues, I think, to check in and make sure that I am making the right kinds of decisions is really important. So having some trusted colleagues that I can go to and go, I'm going to do this, what do you think? And sometimes they'll just look at me and go, not a good idea. I think that's really important, to have those trusted colleagues.
Thanks, Guy. Stuart?
Thank you. I think an example of what could be potentially a difficult conversation would be in a job interview. I think, particularly going for a job interview, that you may feel a little bit out of your depth. I think going in with a level of confidence in what you bring to the table, a bit of a plan. I think I agree with Kim in that thinking about it over and over isn't helpful. But having a bit of a plan of what you're hoping to achieve within the conversation, and just having confidence that, it could go one way, it could go another way, but, you're going to try and do your best, and again, be, open to the other person's position. But I think confidence and compassion go a long way in having conversations that could be potentially difficult.
Absolutely. Okay, so events like today are really important for teachers, because you get an opportunity to chat to like-minded teachers and people who are in similar positions to you and so on. So what would you say the role of networking has been within your position now to get you to your role where you're at now?
For me, I think it's been quite helpful. The first job I got, the second job that I got, one of my referees actually knew the principal. I didn't know there was a connection there, but I think, not that was the reason I got the job, but I think that worked in my favour, that I had done my teaching rounds at this other person's school. I'd done a reasonable job, and so I think that was a trusted recommendation. the job that I have now in the interview. I didn't actually realise it at the time, but someone that I went to uni with was currently working in the PE department. And so when I found that out in the interview, I was able to talk about the experiences that we've had together, you know, and we used to work together as well. And I think that was really fantastic. And now doing the outdoor ed that I do, organising camps and programs and that sort of thing, I used to work in the industry a little bit myself as well. And so those connections have just been really easy because someone might have an idea, and sometimes I'm able to say, I know someone who does that. I'll be able to get in touch with them. So I think it can be really helpful.
Thank you. Kim?
I reiterate what Stuart says, but it hasn't. It's probably now actually that I find it's personally played a bigger role in my career development. A lot of my earlier positions were a bit more being in the right place at the right time, if I'm really honest. But I suppose having a friend somewhere to be able to give my CV, and all of a sudden it was the same year that the head of Year 9 resigned at that school, and that kind of, you know, all just fell into place. But certainly the school that I work in now is a huge school, and it certainly helps now, having worked in all different areas of it, being able to say, oh yeah, I know that person, or I know that, you know, I know how that person will work, and so it's certainly internal networking is also really important.
I think the biggest change for me moving from being a teacher to being an assistant principal is, in my school in particular, there's a delineation between teaching staff and administration staff. And so while I do still have relationships with teachers, it's not the same as, you know, my friends that I have. So networking is really important for me because it can be quite isolating. The higher up you move in a school, the more isolating it becomes. You have fewer people around you to be able to draw on. So I use my networks to make sure that those decisions that I'm making are the right kinds of decisions, and also just to be able to, you know, sometimes just express myself, because I can't keep everything that's happening to me day to day to myself. I also network in other ways. So I'm assessing for VCAR in theatre studies. So that's one of the things that I like to do, because I feel like that keeps me in touch with what I started off doing, which was the teaching part of things. And so I have a nice network of, you know, drama teachers that I know around the state. And those kinds of networks are really important because that keeps my passion and my drive going. I think if I just was caught up in my job every day and just sort of, you know, in that idea of just being in my school, like a little box, I wouldn't have a bigger picture perspective on what the system looks like, and that's really important.
Absolutely. And I think schools can often find themselves working in silos and, you know, not necessarily contacting schools around them to see what practices are happening. So I think you reaching out and networking with other teachers and hearing about what they're doing and learning from their experiences is really important. I mean, my whole role actually exists on networking. So it's about, you know, getting contact with other teachers and learning from them as well.
I've just got one more.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you very much. Just one more point on that Kim, you sort of jogged my memory. A bit naively of me being at uni, you know, thinking towards the end, okay, I've got to start applying for jobs. I know this teacher at this school, I know this teacher at this school, I know this teacher at this school. Didn't actually help me. Because, you know, not only do you need to know someone, all they can do in some aspects is put your name forward. You know, there needs to be a position. You need to be the most suitable candidate. So networking, you know, can be fantastic, but you also need to put in the hard yards yourself. You're not going to get a free ride.
Absolutely. And one thing I would add to that, and it's about putting yourself out there. So look for opportunities maybe to present what you're doing in your classroom at conferences, for example. It can be really nerve-wracking the first time you do it. And often you might think you don't have anything worth sharing, but then once you get out there, you realise that what you're doing in your classroom is actually quite good practice and quite innovative for another teacher to hear about. So if you see opportunities to present at conferences, put it out there, because not only are you networking, but you're seen there as, you know, as someone who knows a little bit about the area and so on. Okay, that's the end of my questions for today, and we're going to put it to the audience now. Does anybody have any questions for our panel today?
I was hoping for one down this end for today, but I'll run back.
Hi, thank you so much for speaking. I'm from early years. I've done early years in primary, and I'm looking at a position to actually be a leader where there's going to be 4 of us in the room in a 3-year-old kinder. And I'm just wondering, like, I've taken some notes, especially I picked up on when Stuart, you were talking about compassion, and Sky about, and relaxing the control as well. And essentially what I got from you, Sky, is that you're talking about being like other-centered in terms of when you're leading. Would you have any like practical tips? Because I think a lot of us also being at Monash and having that sort of personality of really wanting to give 110% and sometimes not relaxing the control of like, oh, I got to do it all myself sort of thing, and to change that mentality into really like a teamwork sort of approach where like obviously you can have so much more out of it for the children and everyone else. What would be some practical tips, I suppose, to shift that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
From the perspective of, because I have a child in 3-year-old kinder, and I know the dynamics of being in early years, the challenges are slightly different to being in a secondary school where the teacher is the only person sometimes in the classroom. And so working in a room collaboratively with a group of people can be quite challenging because you're all kind of contributing. What would be most challenging, I think, is actually being the leader of that room, because you're going to kind of be in between the administration and the staff. And so I know in my son's daycare setting, that is an issue with them at the moment, where there is a bit of a dynamic between the leadership and the teaching staff. And so I guess being able to separate yourself from the criticisms that will come up, that they aren't necessarily about you, but they might be about the structures, or they might be about the things that are in play, but it's not personal, because things will come up and it will feel personal sometimes, but you just have to remind yourself that people are just probably venting about the situation that they're in and not the person.
We've had similar issues in our early learning centre as well, between the lead educator and then the educators in the room, and having that whole personality dynamic to work with. And someone once said to me, and I've taken this with me throughout my career, it is always helpful to be right, but it is not always right to be helpful. And if you kind of remember that at a moment when it might be on the tip of your tongue, then I feel like that's got me out of a few little tricky situations.
I think also, placing trust in those other people within the team as well. There's nothing worse as being a team member and having someone who might be your manager, who you don't feel that they trust, or they can't give you any responsibility. So I think if you've got someone that's, they think they're really knowledgeable in a certain area, and you trust that they are, maybe give them some of that responsibility and say, would you like to run this area? Can you, obviously run it by me first. But I think, sort of spreading the load and being able to delegate appropriately if people within the team are willing to participate in that.
Absolutely. I had a principal who loved the term surfacing potential. So always looking for ways to bring people up through, roles of leadership.
I was just thinking one more. I think it's important to play to your strengths, but I also think it's important to show that you have areas of improvement. And so I try to model for my staff that I'm reflecting on what I'm not necessarily good at, and getting feedback from them about that. So the GNOS Emotional Intelligence Survey is a survey that I undertook and gave to people that I worked with to find out what areas I could improve on. And I think constantly kind of having conversations about areas that I want to work on, and using those people in my team to help build my strengths up and use them in their strengths really helps build that team dynamic. So it's less of that kind of hierarchy.
Thanks, Guy. Any other questions? Down there now.
Looking the wrong way.
Hi, I was just curious because I'm only in my second year of teaching at the moment, and and earlier this year I had an opportunity to become the domain leader of science at my school, which is good and I enjoy the challenge. But one thing I found really, really difficult, and I just wanted your point of view on, is looking quite young and being very young. I've had a lot of pushback from older staff or staff that have been, I guess, in their profession for a much longer period of time than me. And that's usually something that they kind of like hold against me when I want to bring in new ideas or new concepts. So I was just wondering how you've all dealt with that and how, I guess, you try and improve that environment a bit more.
Hi again. It's similar to what I was just saying. You actually play to your weaknesses. So you know that you're young. And I was in a similar situation. So I was leading the arts domain team in my second year of teaching. And all the people in my team had actually done the role before and for like 10, 15 years each. And they would do things to make my life more difficult, like not give me my mail that I needed to get. But it was actually when I started to say, you know what, I don't know everything, and that's okay. The reason why I'm trying to do this job is because I want to do this, or I want to make this happen for the students. I want to facilitate this. And so it was actually just, you know, laying bare what I thought were my weaknesses and actually being okay with the fact that I wasn't able to know everything.
And appealing to their expertise as well, and not being afraid to say, I know you've done this before, do you have any feedback for me on this? Or, you know, what do you, I'm thinking about doing this, what do you think? I know you've been in this position, I'm really interested in your thoughts and any tips that you can give me. And as Guy said, to turn your weakness, or what you perceive as your weakness, around and tap into their strength.
I agree with all those points, and I think, you know, you've been given that position for a reason, and you need to have confidence within yourself that you are the right person for the job. And obviously, the people that you know, gave you that position, they believe so too. So you've got the support of people, you know, higher above you that you can ask questions for as well and express your troubles, you know, because they've probably got great ideas as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? None?
Covered it all. That's great.
Yeah, it must have been comprehensive. So I think we might wrap up then for our session. So I'd like to thank the panellists, Stuart, Kim and Skye, for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation around leadership.
Thank you. And thank you to Lucas as well for facilitating. You did an excellent job, so thank you very much for being with us.